September 3rd of 2024. The time is 6:10 p.m. Appreciate you being here, and my apologies for being late. It's a family first situation, if you can appreciate. So we will be underway with a call to order. Mr. Macy.
OJ.
Here.
Murray. Here. Brown. Here. Short.
Here.
Emmons.
Here.
Mayor Box.
Here. Pastor from way down the street. How are you, Mr. Wynn? Good. Come lead us to the Lord in prayer, if you would, sir.
Yep, no problem.
By the way, since it's been a while, I want you to give everybody an update on who you are at the church, what's going on.
Sure.
It's your time.
Yeah, just real quick. My name's Dave Wynn. I'm the lead pastor at Jenks Church right down the street. Been here about 6 years and just glad to be part of the community and all of the good things going on.
Good.
Let's
Thank you,
have a
Pastor.
word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you now just with hearts of gratitude. Just thank you for all you're doing in our city and our lives. Just pray your continued blessing upon all of that, on the schools and the businesses, just the communities as a whole. But God, also these men and women that represent our city, you'll continue to bless them, watch over them, give them wisdom, give them patience, God. But more than that, just give them perseverance. The days are long sometimes, and so we just ask your blessing upon them. For all those that are in attendance tonight and have business and things to say, God, just give us all a heart of peace and grace. And thank you again for all you do for us. We pray it all in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, the Thai Club still around?
It is not.
Oh, no?
No, yeah, we had to
Okay.
forgo that.
Okay, well, I was going to say, if you guys ever want to do something like that again, let us know.
I appreciate it.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have an animal welfare spotlight on the agenda. I don't see any animals other than the normal ones that attend over here. Doesn't look like we can skip that. Very well. Moving on to citizens' comments or public comments. If you're here and you'd like to address the council or city staff as a whole, you may do so. Please make sure your comments aren't related to any items on tonight's agenda. All right. Thank you very much. We will close the floor to public comment. And moving on to item number 1 of our general business is the consideration and appropriate action relating to tonight's consent agenda. Council members, if you'd like, you can certainly call for anything from A through I to be further reviewed, or we can entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Motion to approve as presented.
Mr. Mayor?
Sir.
Can we pull item, I apologize, can we pull item H just for a little explanation from city manager?
Yes, can we have a motion or remotion on item 1 minus H, please?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda minus item number H.
Second.
Okay, thank you both very much. You have a proper motion and a second to approve item 1 less letter H. So please.
OJ.
Yes.
Murray.
Yes.
Brown. Yes. Short.
Yes.
Emmons.
Yes.
Mayor Box.
Yes, item number 2, let's move on to item H. Letter H of number 1 is the approve the authorization of reimbursement of public infrastructure improvements to Roy's Chicken in the form of a sales tax reimbursement from sales tax that Roy's has generated, as well as future sales tax up to $58,845. Full payment to Roy's continued collection and remittance of sales tax up to the full payment amount. This is on page 80 if you are interested, and Mr. Shroud, if you could take this one, it'd be much appreciated.
Mayor and all members of council, Roy's Chicken opened, I believe, about a year ago. They constructed public improvements that were in the right-of-way. That included drainage, water lines, sidewalk, landscaping, and other items. And because of the timing of our Main Street project, a lot of that infrastructure was then ripped out and is being redone currently. And so to reimburse them for the public infrastructure that they put in, they submitted receipts, and this agreement basically says that they can receive up to $58,000 from the sales tax that they produce over time for those public improvements. And I think so far they've generated something like $36,000. And so if this is approved, they'll receive $36,000. And then over time, as they continue to produce sales tax revenue, they are eligible to receive up to $58,845.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud. Any questions for Chris on letter H, reimbursement program for Roy's? Okay, Roy's has been a good community partner, good neighbors. They are our neighbors. They do live here. They've had a heck of a first year with everything that's been going on around them, so appreciate the fact that they reached out for this support, and glad you guys would consider it. Letter H, Mr. Brown, would you like to?
Make a motion to approve the, I guess, I don't know if it'll be letter H now, but Resolution 841 that goes along with the reimbursement of $58,845 to Roy's as presented.
Second. Thank you both. We have a proper motion and second on item 2. Let's vote, please.
OJ,
Yes.
Murray.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes?
Short.
Yes.
Emmons.
Yes.
Mayor Bucks.
Yes. Item 3, consideration and appropriate action relating to resolution number 838, a resolution in the city of Jenks approving the incurrence of indebtedness by the Jenks Public Works Authority, issuing its promissory note, Series 2024, providing that the organizational document creating the authority is subject to the provisions of the indenture authorizing the issuance of said note, waiving competitive bidding with respect to the sale of said note, and approving the proceedings of the authority pertaining to the sale of said note, approving and authorizing execution of an agreement of support, and containing other provisions relating thereto. We are on page 82 if you are following along, and we welcome back to Green Country, Mr. Ellis. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you, Mayor and Council, and I'm going to introduce my partner, Alan Brooks, who is, did you want to come up and talk about this? Okay. I thought he said he wanted to, so now he gets to.
Well, he's got a bow tie, so by default, he gets to speak first.
Change my dress code. Again, Alan Brooks, Public Finance Law Group. We've been working with your staff for several weeks in connection with funding relative to your new fire station. The resolution you have in front of you tonight is consideration at the city level for approving debt. When we incur debt, the beneficiary has to approve that debt. There's a companion item on the Public Works Authority agenda related to this item as well. Long and short of it is we're talking about a $5.5 million note. The term of the note would be 5 years. Interest rate is 5% fixed. The interest on the note is basically there's no principal required to pay on the note until maturity. It's interest only for 5 years, which is an unusual provision, but which is what the city was looking for in connection with this transaction. Probably the most unique facet of this transaction is there's no collateral. That is a testament to the strong financial position that Jenks is in. Essentially, the lender in this case, which is F&M Bank out of Guthrie, based upon your audited financial statements, feels like your credit is sufficient, that they're comfortable, you'll repay the note without any collateral being required. So we're not having to pledge cash as collateral, utility revenue, sales tax, real property. It's totally unsecured. The note is prepayable at any point in time, in whole or in part, so should you decide that you wanted to pay this down early, you can. And there are 0 transaction costs on this transaction. In talking with city staff, our firm as bond counsel has agreed not to charge anything. The financial advisor, Bank of Oklahoma, is not charging anything. The trustee bank is not charging anything. And the lender on the transaction is not going to have any points or upfront costs at all. So essentially, it's a very positive transaction for the city. Should you approve it this evening, we have the documents with us. We'll sign the documents and we'll close the transaction very quickly. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Any questions, comments from the council on my right? Council on my left? Generally speaking, for the layman's terms, you've seen this deal. Is this a good deal or a great deal?
I would throw it in the great deal category.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that. I
No
know that
problem.
was a very technical question, but I appreciate it.
And a technical answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Brooks.
No problem.
Last call from council. Do we want to just go ahead and move on to item 4? I don't think, well. Yeah, okay. Nothing more on item 3. Let's go ahead and roll call, please.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a proper motion and a second. Item 3, let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to item 4, the consideration of appropriate action relating to ordinance number 1649, an ordinance of the City of Jenks approving and adopting an amendment to the Jenks River Entertainment District Economic Development Plan to clarify the eligibility of certain authorized project costs, providing for severability, declaring an emergency, and containing other provisions related thereto. We are on page 103. Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. This is really a technical amendment, or what we call a minor amendment relative to the project plan. So it's an amendment that the city can take action and make that technical amendment to the ordinance, to the project plan. It doesn't require going through the review committee process. The reason why, we're not increasing the dollar amount at all. You could actually increase it up to 5%. We're not increasing the land area by any amount. You could increase it up to 5%. We're not changing the nature. This was really actually a request of subsequent items that we have here of their council, that we make a clarification. One, that there are, as we hoped, other projects that would go south of the Turnpike, in addition to the outlet mall, that there'd be other projects there as well. And just wanted to clarify that it wasn't just that one project. And then also, we have certain funds that we designated under the project plan as being available for economic incentives. There was about 60 million that was identified. 30 of it was specifically identified to the outlet mall, which is kind of a carryover from the original TIF that we terminated a year ago and kind of rolled into this one. And then there was another 30 million, just clarifying that it could be used for any other related projects. So when we get to the next item, we'll talk about one of those such projects. But so again, this is just a technical correction ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Ellis? Okay. All right, thank you very much. We can entertain a motion on 4, please.
I make a motion to approve item number 4.
Second.
As written.
Thank you both very much. A proper motion is second on ordinance number 1649. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, thank you. Item 5 is the emergency clause for ordinance number 1649.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you both very much. Vote, please. Item 5.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, sir. Item 6, consideration and appropriate action relating to a resolution number 840, a resolution authorizing the Jenks Economic Development Authority to assist the City of Jenks in carrying out and administering the Jenks River District Economic Development Project Plan adopted by the city, approving and authorizing the execution of an economic development agreement by and among the authority, the city, and Tulsa Premium Outlets, approving and authorizing the execution of an economic development agreement by and among the authority, the city, and Camp Pickle Jenks Unit Co., LLC, approving and authorizing the execution of a security agreement by and between the authority and the city pertaining to certain tax increment revenues, approving the use of assistance in development financing, and containing other provisions relating thereto. We are on page 113. Mr. Ellis.
Okay, thank you. So this is a culmination of quite a bit of effort over time. I know you'll all recall years ago, we had the steel structure that went up just south of the Turnpike, and then COVID hit, and the world halfway fell apart, and it just kind of sat there. And then as we approved this TIF district about a year ago, then around about the same time, they finally started moving forward with the project for Tulsa Premium Outlets, and it is now actually open. And I think we kind of trying to get to the finish line here, and they actually got it open before we got here, but that's okay. We're glad they're open. So that particular agreement is, as was identified in the project plan specifically, it's a $30 million reimbursement for infrastructure improvements that they did relative to the area of the development, a lot of the street improvements, traffic, and all of that. And so that would be payable from TIF revenues that are generated from the sales tax that's generated and the ad valorem that's generated within their site, the Tulsa Premium Outlets plat area. And so it'll reimburse that 30 million plus an interest component over time. I think we project it'll probably be reimbursed over the course of maybe 13 to 15 years and maybe even faster if it sounds like they're doing very good business so far, and hopefully that will continue. The other incentive that is part of this, Tulsa Premium Outlets has sold one of their parcels, one of their out parcels to Camp Pickle. And so there's a separate incentive relative to Camp Pickle that is just a $4 million sales tax rebate. So that will be payable from the sales tax, kind of on a performance pay-as-you-go basis, from the sales tax that they generate off of their activities alone. Now, once that's paid out, then whatever sales tax is being generated off of that will then go back towards the Simon properties or to the Tulsa Premium Outlets payment. And it's important to remember, and I think, Chris, you wanted me to mention this, that the TIF, remember, captures 2 cents of the 3.55 cents total sales tax that the city gets. So the TIF, this incentive is being paid from 75% of the ad valorem that's generated off of these projects, and then 2 cents of the 3.55. The other 1.55% of sales tax is going to the city and is going to be available. Those are additional funds that are available to help pay for projects like the fire station and other things. And the other 25% of the ad valorem is going to Jenks School as additional funds, a revenue source for them. So this resolution approves those agreements. It approves a security agreement. We're only dealing with this partial universe of revenue of the sales tax and the ad valorem off of the Tulsa Premium Outlets area. So this doesn't pledge any of the other TIF revenues that might come from the aquarium TIF or any of the other TIFs that are related, or property that's in the south TIF, the Tulsa Premium Outlets TIF, that's outside of their boundary area. So that area that's south all the way out to the river, that's still reserved and available to be leveraged for future projects that are necessary within the TIF and the project area. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis. Any questions from council for item 6? Mr. Brown?
Yes, I think if we can maybe just back this down a little bit, I'll take a Senator Joseph Kennedy approach to this and say I'm a simple person. And I know that there's a lot of misinformation and maybe some confusion in the community about the way the 3.5% is collected and how that's divvied up. So maybe just some clarification on the 1.5 cents that we're, 1.5%, I guess, that we're retaining that's going to go into the general budget, I guess.
Yes.
And then also from the aspect of repayment, if the outlet malls, if these projects do better, once we've repaid the total amount, what happens after that? And then also, I guess, for the city manager, as we're projecting our budgets, are those budgets that we're presenting, are they based upon the 3.5%? Or are they based upon the net collected amount of what we're perceiving that we'll retain, if that makes sense?
Who's just going to start?
So the city of Jenks collects 3.55% on retail sales. 2% go to our operating fund, 1% goes to our capital improvement fund, and 0.55% goes to our vision extension fund. Our vision extension fund is for the low water dam, trails, sidewalks that have already been constructed, the splash pad at Veterans Park. And so the 2% for operations is going to the TIF, but we still collect the 1% for capital improvements and the 0.55% for our vision extension fund. We budget every single year. We have, we've had 4 TIFs, now I think we have 6 or 7, 6, and we include those in the budget every year. So the finance team takes what we project will be generated in each of those TIF areas. They go into a specific TIF fund related to the TIF and are only to be expended for eligible expenses from the TIF document. So the city, although we're incentivizing, largely we're incentivizing for public infrastructure that we don't have to raise taxes, we don't have to raise property taxes, and that money is being fronted to the city by developers building public roads, putting in sewer, putting in water lines, and in addition to that, we still have the 1.55% that we have to use however we see, however this council and the community sees fit. So I think that, and especially with the outlet mall, it's a pretty good deal. So
then, from a clarification standpoint, the city did not have to expend the cost for all the infrastructure and improvements that went into it, and we're still going to be collecting the 1.5% that will then come into the budget, it can go into improvements, and the 2% that is being repaid to the developers for the cost of all the improvements. Once we've repaid the maximum amount that's been specified within the TIF, that goes away, and then we start collecting all of it. We retain all of it.
correct. The TIF fund then would retain all of it, and we could use those funds on assisting with bank stabilization, trails, low water dam, fire station, improvements on Main Street. The TIF area for this TIF is from the Arkansas River essentially to Park West, 91st Street, down to Polecat Creek. So it's a pretty large area, and I think we have sufficient projects that, our goal as city staff and city council is, can we use this TIF and can we incentivize a big tax generator to come here? We incentivize it, but then on the back end, we reap the benefits of the public infrastructure improvements in what essentially is Ward 1.
And then also, I guess from a standpoint of rising tides lift all boats, because of the development, because of the retail that's been brought into the community, where people are coming in not only for the outlet mall, but they're also coming in then to other businesses in other retail areas. So again, that's helping to increase our tax revenue base around the city.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I think that should clear it up. It's just, I know that we all have to read through it several times, and we're dealing with it on a regular basis, so the citizens, it's probably confusing to most people.
And
But
Camp
thank you for the
Pickle is probably a
clarification.
good example of a business that wouldn't be locating there, but for the fact that you've got the outlet mall, there's already that traffic that's generated. It's an ideal location for them because of that.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
that.
Mr. Brown. Gentlemen.
Real quick,
Mr.
Mr.
Short.
Ellis, you had mentioned at the very end, the out parcels are not included in this?
So there is a platted area that's Tulsa Premium Outlets. They have built basically most of the center. There's a handful of parcels that they have around the edge of their property that are inside the property they acquired that are out parcels that one lot is going to Camp Pickle. They may replat more depending on what there is, but I mean, there are other businesses that are interested in locating within that area as well. There's also parcels of property outside of that, still inside the TIF, but it's only capturing what's in the original Tulsa Premium Outlets footprint.
Okay, thank you.
Which includes Camp Pickle.
So we would not likely see any incentive requests from a large restaurant because they should be inside the existing Simon incentive boundary.
That would be the hope.
Okay.
I can't predict what people might ask.
But at this
City.
point, since Simon was the first domino and Camp Pickle only exists because of the first domino, I don't expect for us to see any incentive requests for after this point, I think anybody that's got a good business sense would want to be somewhere located somewhere near that campus. Would you agree?
They may ask.
Yeah, they may ask, yeah. And I think you used to use the word, what was that term you used to use, second term derivative as far as the sales tax balance?
Second derivative impact.
Yeah, I think that's your, so, Mr. Ellis, I'm going to ask you this question in a different way. I'm going to treat you like an attorney. And for the millions and millions of people that watch us on the YouTube channel, and for the folks out there on Facebook who seem to have a misunderstanding, I'd like to ask you this question. True or false? The city of Jenks will not recognize 1 penny of revenue benefit in this TIF district for 25 years.
I think that's false.
Well,
It's
we know
clearly
it's false.
I mean,
Yeah,
there's,
okay.
there's 1.55% that
Okay.
you will absolutely get on the front end. And then the other 2 cents that's going towards TIF, a lot of the authorized 80% of the authorized project costs that are identified under the project plan are general city infrastructure projects that will benefit the TIF areas, but they'll benefit the city as a whole as well. So, I mean, these are a lot of infrastructure projects that have been identified by the city as things that need to be done and can be addressed. The TIF will provide essentially a supplemental funding source that helps address those projects.
And at some point in the future, should the TIF reimburse Simon at an accelerated rate, let's just say 20 years, just theoretically, the TIF expires in 25, is that true?
Correct.
So should the TIF pay back the requirement in 20 years, beginning in that 21st year, the city of Jenks, all of us will receive 3.55% in full.
Yeah, well, the 2 cents would still be
Yeah.
going to the TIF, but it
Yeah.
would be paying other TIF
Paying other
projects
TIF
that
quality
have been-
projects, assuming there are any.
Correct.
Okay. On far as the property tax side of the TIF, the city of Jenks did not take property tax money from property tax entities. They agreed to it. We had a TIF meeting here
Correct.
in which this gentleman here managed to secure a unanimous vote from all those taxing entities to allow them to forfeit that property tax revenue.
I mean, the agreement was that 100% of the ad valorem revenues would be captured by the TIF, but 25% or a quarter of those all of that would be directed back to the
Jenks
school
Public
district
Schools.
as an additional
Okay.
funding source.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's appreciate the true and false. We are answering questions about this TIF. There's many people who should know better that are miscommunicating the information, so I tried to do it in a slightly different way to see if we could reach everyone. Mr. Short.
Just finally, I think, the thing that I appreciate the most about this whole project, this is the long game. We took a pile of sand and basically turned it into a $100 million project. And so to me, it's inexcusable to hear some of the misinformation. It's just flat out untrue. And the city is going to reap the benefits for generations.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Short. Any other questions for Mr. Ellis as it relates to item number 6? Questions or comments? Very well. Close the floor to council. We can entertain further action on item 6.
Make a motion to approve item 6, resolution number 840.
Second.
Thank you. We have a proper motion and a second to resolution number 840. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes. Item 7 is ordinance 1650 relating to JZ 24-693, a request to rezone a piece of general property described as 1119 West Main Street to local commercial, repealing all ordinances or parts thereof in conflict wherewith, providing for severability, and declaring an emergency. We are on page 193. Mrs. Hilton, good evening.
I have one small question. On our agenda, it says JZ 24693, but on the staff report, it says JA 24693.
I saw that.
Okay.
Sometimes when I type, my fingers do not do what I tell them.
But the A and the
And I did it
Z,
twice in this.
A and the Z are nearby, right?
So is it JZ or J?
It's JZ.
JZ, always
It just
JZ.
means Jinx zoning.
Jinx zone.
Yeah, but I was like,
We don't have a JA at this time.
I wondered that.
I know, I saw that tonight. I was like, are you kidding me?
I didn't see
so-
it until this afternoon, but I
That's
thought
when I saw
I'd
it.
ask. Okay.
I would have asked Brandon to secretly fix it for me, but I didn't see it.
All right, what do we have?
So thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, and staff. This is truly JZ 24693 and Plan Amendment 24-36. And items 7, 8, and 9 are all related, so I'm going to have one conversation. If you have any questions, just let me know. But I'll say in advance, the comp plan amendment is number 9. And if you intend to approve the zoning, you will need to approve the number 9, which is the comp plan amendment. So this is a little area of town that has gotten a lot of attention lately. We started out with Mr. Robertson's property, and he rezoned, even though it had been operating a business for a long time, found out that it wasn't zoned properly, so we got that one rezoned, and it's been a little domino effect. Everyone on the block wants to get rezoned. So this is our, I believe, our third request. We have another one. Okay, just second for now. So the address is 119 West Main Street. Planning Commission did hear this and approved it 6-1. We had one planning commissioner absent. And the comp plan request is to amend the comp plan to match the neighbor's comp plan to the west, which would be local commercial, and then to rezone from RS1 to local commercial. This one is different in the sense that they currently live there, so it's going to create a non-conforming use. So they're allowed to stay there, and they could stay there for 10 years. If they sell the property and they vacate the residence, it has to be, it can never go back to residential. That's what I'm getting at. And they know that, they are aware of that. So the property is currently, the land use map is currently medium intensity single family, and the zoning is RS1. And this is a request for local commercial, again, to match the property to the west. I have heard, I believe the property to the east has contacted the city and wants to go through the same process. So I would have probably included that in the comp plan amendment had I known. But in October, I think we'll bring a few more comprehensive plan amendments and try to get the last of them kind of cleaned up. So on page 194 and 195, it goes through the bulk and area standards. And then it goes through the use chart on page 195. So if it has a P, that means it's permitted. If it has an S, it requires an additional hearing. So if someone wanted to come in and, let me see if I can find a good example. Put a general service that's greater than 10,000 square feet. So general service, they could probably do a strip mall, and maybe they want to have a nail salon and a barber shop and things, a dry cleaner. So those would all be general service. That would require them to come back to the council and ask for permission, because areas that are zoned for commercial, local commercial and commercial shopping, our intent was to collect sales tax. Excuse me. If you look on page 197, you can see the zoning map, and it's highlighted in blue, the lot that we're talking about. And then there's a photo that I stole off of probably Google, and then there's a Google map image. And you have two requests before you. So again, this is item 7, which is the JZ 693. And then you have number 8, which is your emergency clause, and number 9 is the comp plan amendment. Staff and Planning Commission both recommend approval of these items.
Thank you, Mrs. Hilton. You're saying that if the approval is, if granted approval in 10 years from now, they sell this, the structure, it cannot be a single-family residence.
It actually technically could be, it's if it's vacated for X days. So if they moved out and it's set vacant for whatever the time limit is, 6 months, then it can no longer be a single-family residential. That's how the law works.
That's how our law works, or state law, or?
I actually think we mirror state law on that.
Okay.
Can't remember. I'm pretty sure that's what the statutory law, it is definitely what ours says, but I think it mirrors state statute.
And this will be a professional services business?
No, it's nothing, just a house.
No, the plan, that's what it's going to be?
Could be anything with
Okay.
local commercial, so
Okay.
it could be tax producing or
Okay.
some type of service.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Hilton? Mr. Brown?
Yes, a couple of questions. As I was reading through this, and I was trying to find this spot in here, because we are looking at a comp plan amendment, one of the concerns, I realized we changed the UDO, and we were previously trying to keep a buffer between commercial and residential through light office. And one of the concerns I have is this particular neighborhood is a very mature neighborhood, very stable. A lot of the homeowners in that particular area have invested in their homes. It's a decent neighborhood. And I recognize that the properties along Main have been converting to this type of a situation. In what's permitted under local commercial, is the applicant present?
Actually do not know.
And the reason I'm asking is there's some uses within the local commercial that I'd be concerned about if there's no buffer between the houses that, or the properties that are along Main versus the next row, the next street to the north. We have dispensaries, I don't think, gas stations, mini marts are not in there. Trying to see what else would be in there. Accessory buildings, accessory structures. Let's see.
Now, while he's looking those up, the lot to the east and the west are already pursuing the same process, already have.
The lot to the west has been approved and is an office.
And it's going to be this same zoning and same use? Okay.
And it's been an office,
10, 12 years,
Yeah.
maybe longer.
quite a while. And I guess my thought, I understand where you're coming from, Counselor, but when I look at the size of the lot, I wonder, I mean, I understand some of the things that you brought up, but I still think that if someone is going to use a lot like this for some of the uses that you talked about, it's going to be next to impossible without combining, without someone purchasing multiple lots and putting them together. And even then, it still may require additional approval from the Planning Commission and City Council. And so when I look at this, I just see, well, there's two lots that aren't designated as this on the comp plan out of everything else on Main Street. And I understand protecting the neighborhood, but
I'm actually okay with the idea of converting it to local commercial as long as we've got some type of a stopgap mechanism to where, again, if there was a purchase of adjacent lots, and then again, somebody wanted to put in something that would be adverse to the neighbors to the north, if we'd have a mechanism with the Planning Commission or coming back to council to tap the brakes.
When we updated the UDO, we put in a chart that sets the standards for that buffer, because we previously didn't have a set buffer. So it now states you have to have this type of fence, this type of landscaping, it has to be this far away, and for every foot you go higher, I believe that there's an additional setback requirement,
Okay.
which we didn't previously.
and there's a church right there, so that
That
would
would-
also,
Except with, I don't think state statute prohibited for dispensaries, for churches. Schools, yes, but not churches. That was omitted at the state level. So you feel like there's adequate protections that?
I do.
Okay.
Well,
that's-
Mr. Brown, you could, if you want, you could go through the table on page 3 of 6, and if there's anything there you'd like to call out in the motion, the motion's always debatable. If you don't want it to be a convenience store, if that's your primary concern, is that it becomes a 7-Eleven or whatever.
Generally, on straight zoning, you don't get to pick and choose.
Yeah,
We put conditions on PUDs.
Uh-huh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, convenience and dispensaries would probably be the only things that I would see in there that might be adverse to the homeowners to the north.
Anything else, Mr. Brown?
No, thank
Okay,
you.
you satisfied?
As long as we've got a mechanism to revisit it. And I think the city manager's correct on that, that it would take maybe an additional lot and then joining the lots to do that.
Right, to get a
So,
bigger project.
Yeah.
I think hopefully they'll use if the structures are sound, which I don't know if they are, sometimes it's fun just to take the structure that's there and retrofit it, but sometimes it's not possible.
And it's more than a third of an acre. The house is very close to the street, so if nothing changes, even if the use became, even if they taught choir singing lessons out of it, it's a reasonably sized lot and it's very close to the street. So even if it was something noisy, it's pretty well buffered from distance-wise, so. Any other questions from council on item number 7? All right, close item number 7. We'll close the floor to council. We can open the floor to the public. Any comment on item 7, JZ 24693, rezoning a piece of property? Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Charlotte Montgomery, 10612 South Fir Avenue. One of the things that the city planner did point out is that when you have straight zoning and you're concerned about like a dispensary or some of those other uses coming in, either the planning commission or yourselves, you can go back and change the UDO so that that becomes, instead of a P for permitted, you can always change it to an SUP. That's my comment.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Anyone else? Public comment, item number 7. Okay, close the floor on item 7. We can entertain a motion forward, please.
I entertain a motion to approve item number 7 as written.
Second.
Thank you. We have a proper motion and second on item 7. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, item 8 is the emergency clause for ordinance number 1650.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes. Item 9 is PA 24-36, a request to amend the comprehensive plan land use map from single-family medium intensity to local commercial general location is still 1119 West Main Street. Same item as the previous 2. Any last-minute questions? Comprehensive plan change. All right, very well. We can entertain a motion if you guys are ready.
I'll motion to approve number 9. Excuse me.
Second.
9.
Was there a second? Okay, I hear a bunch of coughs and sneezing. I think somebody said something over there. For all I know, it's somebody in the audience. I believe we have a proper motion and a second to approve item number 9. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, item 10 is ordinance 1651 relating to Jenks zoning 24-695, a request to rezone a piece of property generally described as 502 East A Street to commercial shopping, repealing all ordinances or parts thereof in conflict wherewith, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Hilton, we are on page
203.
203. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Box, council, and staff. This is a rezoning request. This property, if you're familiar with 8th Street, is adjacent to Alien Games. It's the vacant lot there. And when they went through the process, discovered that part of the lot is zoned commercial shopping and the other portion is office medium. And with the setbacks that are required in the UDO, you couldn't really build anything on an office medium lot. So they're requesting to rezone to commercial shopping. I did ask them to consider downtown core, and they said, yeah, we'll go with commercial shopping. And I said, okay. So it is within the comprehensive plan as the downtown area, and on page 204, it shows if you had an office medium, I've highlighted in yellow the difference. You can see it's a very large difference. The front setback is 40 feet. And for commercial shopping, it's 0, downtown core is 0. And then the interior side, so that would be what was adjacent to Alien Games, you would have a 20-foot setback. So you can see that that would be very challenging. on that lot. This was approved. Staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of this rezoning request to commercial shopping. They are under contract to build an office building.
Very well. Thank you, Mrs. Hilton. Any questions from council on my right?
You said they're under contract to build an office building. Is there any retail associated with it?
Not today, maybe. Sure.
All right. Anyone on my left? All right. We'll go ahead and close the floor to the council. We are on item 10. We can open the floor to public comment, JZ 24-695. Okay, nobody's looking at me, so I'm guessing we will go ahead and close the floor on item 10. Come back to council, last call, questions, comments.
Make a motion to approve JZ 24695 as presented.
Second.
Thank you both. We have a proper motion and second. Item 10, JZ 24695, ordinance 1651. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Brown?
Yes?
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, sir. Item 11 is the emergency clause for ordinance number 1651.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have a proper motion and second on item 11. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Brown?
Yes?
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes, thank you. Item 12, ordinance 1652, relating to JZ 24 PUD 146, a request for a major amendment to PUD 146 on a piece of property in the general location of 131st Street and Elm, repealing all ordinances or parts thereof in conflict wherewith, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. We are on page 211. Mrs. Hilton.
Thank you, Mayor Box and council. This is a major amendment number 1, and we're calling it crossvine, and it's JZ-PUD 146. So this is an overlay. The underlying zoning is RS3. At the Planning Commission hearing on August 22nd, it was approved, and there were no conditions attached. There were public comment, and I had someone call me, at least one person call, and ask about connectivity, traffic, stacking at the gate, brownfield, and signage were the primary contents of the questions. So the general area is South Jenks. Originally, this property was in our fence line, but was not part of the city of Jenks, and it was annexed in December of 2003. The developer group who purchased it has been talking to the city for 3 years, maybe. It's taken almost, probably maybe longer, but at least 3 years, been working on purchasing this property, selling the property, getting the property rezoned, getting it annexed. So there's been years and years of process. It's a 120-acre tract, and the actual PUD was approved, PUD 146, the original one was approved in December of 2023. So that's all on page 1. There were 3 phases, and I was explaining to Mr. Murray, Councilor Murray, that we probably should have designated them as 3 development areas, because phase 2 came in before phase 1. So we'll say phase 2 or development area 2. What happened when we approved the PUD, the ownership knew what they wanted to do with phase 1, and they were ready to move forward. They weren't quite sure what was going to happen with phase 2, and they definitely had no idea how phase 3 was going to pan out. So what we did was approve the PUD and said, when you get ready to develop the next 2 phases, then you need to come back with a major amendment that will give us the details. So tonight is only for the development area or phase 2. It does not include the hard corner, which was approved and does allow for commercial and some high-intensity residential. And I don't know if they said high-intensity residential in the PUD. I'll look for that in a minute. Or I think you should say multifamily. I do say that on page 212. So this is in the Glenpool School District. This is a major amendment, which was what we requested to PUD 146 Overlay District. And it's zoned RS3. Phase 1 allowed for 43 acres to be developed. Phase 2, which is what we're looking at tonight, is approximately 55 acres. So if you look at page 213, I won't go through any more of that. We have, can you change it, Brandon, to page 213? Thank you. We have Phase 1 and compared to RS3, and we have Phase 2 in yellow, so that's what's before us tonight. And then Phase 3 would be future PUD. So Phase 2 is about 55 lots, or, sorry, 55 acres. They have dedicated 5,200 square feet per lot, and the lot widths are 50 feet. These are the frontages you see there. They're asking for an interior side yard of 1 and 9. So the 9 feet allows for full access around air conditioning units, et cetera, and then the 1 foot. So there's always 10 feet between the homes, but it's 1 foot on one side and 9 on the other. The rear yard setback is 20, the height 35, impervious surface 60, and they have a minimum house size of 1,600 square feet with 100% masonry, and they plan to build 180 homes. If you look on page 214, that's the zoning map. You can see everything that was rezoned to RS3, and then you see the hard commercial corner. If you look on page 215, it really just starts talking about the PUD development standards in the UDO. So on page 219, kind of lays out the approval. Staff and Planning Commission recommend conditional approval of the request. This change does not amend the underlying RS3 zoning for Phase 2. So it doesn't touch Phase 1, it doesn't touch Phase 3, it only applies to Phase 2. So one of the comments was follow the UDO, which you think makes sense, but sometimes people just don't. And then there, number 2, exceptions to the UDO and staff comments. So they are asking for an exception to architectural features. So I think they have a lot of unique features and needed a little extra height, so that's one exception. Another exception is that in the original PUD 146, we said, hey, we want an arterial that goes north to south from 121st to 131st. That's a little bit challenging when you have a gated neighborhood. So we had to think about and talk about and discuss and think about and talk about and discuss if that was going to be acceptable. There's a significant blue line stream that runs through that entire area. So I think it will focus more on an east-west connection north of, in the northern quadrants and in the southern quadrants to get people moving. The sidewalk requirement, they're requesting sidewalks on one side of the street varying in widths from 4 to 5 feet. Again, this is a private gated neighborhood. It is dedicated to 55 and older, and they want to be allowed, we do require sidewalks on both sides, and we do require 5 feet, but they're asking for that exception. Planning Commission recommended approval of with this exception. Let's see, signage. So the UDO says 15 square feet for a monument sign in a residential district, and they said 48, and we're like, why? So we pulled up their images, which you'll see below, in a similar subdivision called Rabbit Run. They have a gorgeous brick fence that includes their signage on the fence. So the actual lettering is not 48 square feet, but it's a nice feature at the entrance. The rest of it are consider addressing accessory dwelling units in the private covenants, follow the subdivision regulations, and section 6, etc. So on page 220, they also show, I clipped some entry photos and some of their amenities so that you can get a good idea. If you look on page 221, this was all from Rabbit Run, which they have said is a similar product and development. On page 221 starts the actual PUD, kind of repeats most of what I've already said. On page 225 are the actual setbacks that you saw in the chart. And then they have their exhibits. At this time, staff and Planning Commission do recommend approval of this project.
Thank you, Mrs. Hilton. We'll go ahead and open the council on my left. Mr. Murray, anything?
Yes, thank you. I know, Ms. Hilton, you and I talked about this a little bit. And I guess on page 211, it says that in December 5th of 2023, that we approve the purpose of 2 subdivisions at that time. And then it says later on, it says in there, the ownership has worked with staff, gifted some elm right-of-way and things, and then this 120-acre project will be built in 3 phases. So I assume then we only approved 2 subdivisions in December.
It was three phases, and there were 2 major subdivisions, and in this case, I was referring to a single-family residential subdivision. But Phase 3 is the hard corner. It's rezoned to commercial shopping, and they ask in the PUD to allow for multifamily, and that was approved.
Okay.
We approved that, or the plan
Yes, sir.
commission in December?
Did.
We approved multifamily instead of commercial on the hard corner?
It is commercial with a multifamily buffer.
Okay.
But you did say, though, that that part would have to come back,
You will
and
have,
so we would still be able to look at that and have a vote more so on multifamily, per se.
the multifamily was approved, but it would definitely come back. You would look at they didn't put in any densities or anything,
Right.
so there would be a lot to discuss moving forward.
Okay, but I guess my goal is to say, we still will be able to discuss that
Yes, sir.
in the future. Okay. The other thing is, it talks about access and traffic circulation on page 226. It says one gated entryway along South Peoria. And in looking at the design, I guess, more of the area of 233, it shows one entrance, one exit, but then it shows, I assume, something off of South Elgin. But now, I could have easily overlooked it.
No,
but-
you're correct. So there's 2 additional, what lay people often say, crash gates. That's not really what they are, but there are 2 emergency accesses. One is at Elgin, so it will be gated for emergency services only.
Okay.
And then there's another one to the west for emergency services only.
Okay, that's that little green line, I guess, in between the divisions? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Well, it didn't have any street markings or anything, so I wasn't sure, but I wanted to make sure, though, that we did have a separate
I think to
income,
the
or
north.
separate entrance and exit.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any
I
more?
didn't remember it being green.
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. You still going?
No, I just want to make sure that there were more than just the
Yes, sir.
one. And I know
Yeah.
getting Elm built, widening stuff, I don't know if their project is going to be looking at starting this and having a drive in there, and then we'll have to come in there, tear it up. I guess they're going to be prepared for that.
Yes, sir.
with
There'll be
everything
very
goes
close
on.
coordination
Okay.
on that part.
Yeah, just, sorry, Mr. Mayor, I just want to reiterate that the multifamily thing was my concern, that it pops up, because I've been getting some inquiries about it. And I just want to make sure that we still have an opportunity to look at that.
Yeah, we'll get a second crack at it if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments from council on my right? Mr. Brown?
Yeah, just kind of following Councilor Murray's comments about additional areas for egress and ingress. Of course, this would be a question for the chief, if they feel like, the concern that I had was with one main entrance, if you've got a fire, some kind of a disaster right there by the gate, and then you've got an emergency on the, I guess, the west end of that, people would not be able to get in and out. Is there a possibility where we've got those crash gates, maybe requiring future stub out if it's developed to the south?
There would not be a stub out because it's a private gated community.
Okay, so the whole community would be, okay.
We did have all those conversations internally, trying to figure out what was best and safest for the residents who live there and for future connectivity. But at this point, it will be your decision if you think that the private gated community is appropriate there.
Again, there's how many homes planned? 180.
180.
again, that would be just, I defer to the chief as to whether or not they feel like if that would present a problem for emergency vehicles.
But typically speaking, when you say staff recommends, you are always including the fact that you've had conversations with public safety? Okay.
And just kind of a general comment, I apologize that I was out the last meeting with COVID, but in contrast to the PUD that came at the last meeting, I appreciate the fact that there's a lot of variety built into this, and the amenities that are planned are more consistent with what we would want to see with a PUD.
Agree completely. Although some of these homes are on the smaller side, the amenity list is high. There's no monotony here at all in this neighborhood, assuming the curves are kept the way they are. Lots of green space. This is going to be a really nice place to live for that 55 and up community. Not saying it'll be the same price point as Hyde Park just in Tulsa Hills, but it looks like a really, really nice development that will encourage long-term home ownership, and I think it's something we can probably be proud of. So, all right, any other questions, comments from council? All right, we'll close. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I said the minimum, the minimum, 1,600?
Yes, sir.
Do we have any, per se, do we know a maximum or know what they're looking at in general?
I'll let the developer answer that question for you.
Okay,
I
well-
think they'll be willing to answer it for you.
Thank you.
They have a pretty good idea of their product, what they're selling and building.
Yeah.
Actually, they have a very good idea.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hilton. We'll close the floor to council. We can invite the applicant to come forward if they'd like to. We can throw a volley of questions at them, Mr. Murray, and then we can get underway. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Justin Bruin, Walls Design Collective, 123 North Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. Marseille did a wonderful job of explaining the product. The exhibit that we have up here does a good job showing it. I'd like to take maybe quickly, one by one, some of the comments that were mentioned. So along South Peoria, it was mentioned that right-of-way would be dedicated and has been in the process of being dedicated. One of the comments we received was a stacking lane, at least going into the neighborhood from the east. We've addressed this extensively through 2 to 3 plus meetings with various members of city staff to make sure that we are in conformance. We had mentioned the points of access, which you are completely correct. In the PUD, it does mention that it's one point of access to the east. However, we do show along Elgin to the south, kind of the mid-south there, a point of access as well to the west. We had originally discussed it being more of a fire lane emergency access, but truly when it gets to the platting phase of this project, we'd like to look at Elgin as more of a permanent point of access to ensure that we have 2 points of access to the site, especially with 180 units. Price-wise, let me back up just a moment. So the minimum lot area would be 5,200 square feet. The minimum lot size, the building size would be 1,600 square feet. Prices on these homes will average $650,000, ranging between $450,000 to $1 million. There's a number of amenities. We do talk about the sidewalks that would be on one side of the street, but we also do show within the PUD that we would have trails throughout the various reserve areas, detention ponds, that would continue the access throughout the entire development to ensure that we have that. Though we do mention a 55 and over, it is not necessarily a dedicated 55 and over. It's meant to meet the need that we have right now for 55 and over. But no, it would not be necessarily dedicated to 55 and over. Excuse me. The 9-foot, 1-foot side yard setback, as Marseille had mentioned, it does maintain what the existing standard is, which is 10 feet between properties. And I think the real reason between the 9-foot, 1-foot is that if you look at a standard home, there's typically that 5 foot on either side of the home with a fence in between that's maybe not useless, but less utilized property with a 9-foot, 1-foot, and this is a design that our developers used in the past. It really optimizes the space for each individual home, especially on a smaller lot, smaller footprint. The maximum lot coverage for RS3, and we do within the PUD mention that it's high-intensity residential, not multifamily, but the intent, again, is to ensure that, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Essentially, what we're saying is that we're meeting the total amount of the 60% maximum coverage on the site by far less than 30% of the site, especially with the detention areas. Hopefully I did not miss anything. We have a number of amenities that we'll be adding to this particular site. We do have examples. Lakes at Rabbit Run would be a good example in Broken Arrow. But with that, we are, and the comment did come up as far as environmental, we have been working for months and months with environmental agencies to make sure that we have the appropriate product. We have a blue line stream along the north, and that was, again, part of that reason why the access to the north was not a practical solution. Therefore, we have the 3 points of contact on the southwest and east side. So with that, I'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Oh, thank you, sir. And can I get your name again?
Justin D. Bruin.
And the last name?
D. Bruin.
D. Bruin?
Yes, sir.
Can we call you
R-U-I-N.
Justin?
Yes.
Okay. Is Hoffman Homes the exclusive home builder for all 100-plus lots?
That's my understanding. He is here, and
Okay.
he'd be happy to
That's
answer.
fine. I was just curious because, is this, in your opinion, a good representation of what this community will look like?
Yes,
Are you familiar with Hyde Park, Tulsa Hills?
I am.
Is that a
Yes.
fair
That's
comparison?
a fair comparison.
Okay.
Yes,
The amenities, quality of materials and everything?
that's correct.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin while we have him here? Council, Mr. Murray?
What was the price point again, did you say? You said about 450 to what?
450 to 1 million,
Thank you.
It's called
with
luxury
an average being about
downsizing.
650.
Yeah, okay. Does the council see any need to bring the home builder up, or are we good? Okay,
Not a fan. The only thing, I live across the road in Yorktown. When I built there was only going to be 3 subdivisions. We have 6+. We have over 600 residents. And as I was talking to Ms. Hilton, that with Elm being widened, it's going to alleviate a lot of the problem. But until we get that widened and you guys get this open, in the meantime, there's going to be, I can see where there's going to be some jockeying for positions and stuff. So it's just as long as your residents, as a developer, prepared until we can get this infrastructure going, we're doing what we can. But it may take a little while. That's why I mentioned also, I hope you guys are able to get started soon. But if you start too soon and you get that road built, and then we got to come along, just like we had to vote earlier on Roy's Chicken. Roy's Chicken built all this stuff out, and then we came and did something with Main Street. So as long as you are prepared for that.
Yes, sir.
And, I didn't know about that, so thank you.
I think what Craig's trying to say is in the future, for the home builder, we're far more likely going to yield to the guy building the road than the guy building the house.
Sure.
Because we need
Understood.
that road.
Understood.
Taxpayers paid for that road. And
Completely
you're-
understand.
You're building at a great time.
Yes.
No, just kidding. It's not a great time. But it's a good-looking product, and I thank you for it. I don't think the council needs to hear from anyone else, do we? Okay, we'll close the floor. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
And we will open the floor to the public. If anyone has any comments on JZ 24, this PUD, we are on item 12. We'll entertain some comments for a moment. All right, looks like we have no public comment on item 12. If there's no further questions or comments from council, we can entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a proper motion and a second on ordinance 1652. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown? Yes. Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes. Moving on to item 13 is the emergency clause for ordinance number 1652.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you both. We have a proper motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown? Yes. Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Box?
Yes. Item 14, ordinance number 1653, relating to Jenks zoning 24 SUP 122, a request for a zone change from industrial light to commercial shopping with SUP 122, which is the specific use permit, overlaid to allow for a car wash on a piece of property in the general location south of the Turnpike and west of Elm Street, repealing all ordinances or parts therein conflict with, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. If I have to, how many more times I got to say that tonight? And this is helping. Page 239, if you are following along, item number 14. Welcome back.
Thank you. This item is JZ 24, specific use permit 122. And I have a correction for you, Planning Commission summary and recommendation. It was approved 4-2, and we did have one person absent. But I stated here, no conditions attached to recommendations. That is not accurate. They did have a condition that, and the applicant agreed that no billboards signage could be part of the project. And we do have, at this time, a requirement, a spacing requirement. And when I measured, it would not meet that requirement anyway. So maybe that's why I didn't put the condition in there, but normally I would write it no matter what. But for the public record, Ms. Montgomery reminded me that that was not correct. And I appreciate that. So this is a request. The property is currently zoned industrial. So when you're going south on Elm, if you look to your west, you have Quick Trip when you go under the turnpike, and then you have a lot that has a pretty generous access with some decent landscaping that was all part of a landscape company. And that company is, I believe, out of business, and the property is for sale. We have talked to other people interested in this property. The request before you tonight is for a rezoning to commercial shopping, and that would require a specific use permit because this applicant is interested in building a car wash. At the time of the report, I had, in addition to the comments at Planning Commission, one public comment. And it is included in your packet on page 250. And this was from Mrs. Montgomery, and she detailed her concerns very concisely. So the land use plan shows this area as local commercial. When we updated the comprehensive plan, it was a unanimous decision that we would not do any more industrial projects in the city of Jenks, that we wanted to incentivize commercial and office space, but we did not want to have any more industrial. So currently, by right, there are quite a few things that would be allowed, and they are seeking to rezone this. Let's see here. So if you look on page 240, there would have to be a plat, and the comprehensive plan and land use map already meets the intent of their request. There is a street access requirement or recommendation. We have in our code that requires mutual access when possible. So we have asked them to reach out to Quick Trip and connect on the north side, because they're a compatible use. You have on the north side, you have Quick Trip. On the south side, you have Polecat Creek and the property that the city has recently purchased. So then there has additional comments. They did agree to the parking area landscape. So this one was not required, but they agreed to it, to a low masonry wall, the height of which provides effective screening. So this is what we would use on A Street when we're looking, or Beaver when we're looking at development. So maybe you have a business on Main Street and they want to have parking in the rear all the way adjacent to A Street. I think this was common in Lawrence, Kansas. They have a lot of these low masonry walls to provide screening for the parking. So they agreed to that. I did tell them to update their site plan because our code does require an escape lane. And you can read down through there are multiple comments. So a car wash has to be set a minimum of 200 feet from any property in a residential district, in addition to the minimum setbacks required in the zoning in which the car wash is located. So in this case, if you measure from one property line to the next, it is around 350 feet to the mobile home park, which is considered residential. And the next closest residential zoning is approximately 1,200 feet. So it's it's almost double to the mobile home park, and then 6 times further away than the code requires for the south. If you look on page 241, it shows the local commercial, commercial shopping, commercial general, and industrial light, all the different setback requirements. So with this being commercial shopping, it shows the setbacks in yellow. And then I added the use table, and it shows currently, if this were industrial, I highlighted in gray, well, it is industrial. So if it remained industrial, in gray on the far right, it shows what would be permitted with a red P. And then in commercial shopping, in the yellow column, it shows what is permitted, allowed by right, even though they do have a project for this, which is a car wash. So we're asking through the SUP process to allow for a car wash on this lot. One of the questions that was asked repeatedly, if something happened to the car wash, if they did not build it, there is an expiration date on specific use permits. And if they didn't get it done, then the underlying zoning stays and the SUP goes away. So that's why I included the entire chart. If you look on page 245, you'll see the zoning map from the city of Jenks, not incog. And if you look on page 246, you have the land use map, and then there are some current photos of the site, pretty well showing what it looks like right now. This car wash is adjacent. This car wash owner / applicant has a similar car wash, or has the same brand of car wash, same interior guts at 101st and Memorial, and they are adjacent to Quick Trip at that location. It was already in place. That access was in place when they purchased the property, so they did not have to seek that access. I think it works out pretty good, and it is a huge hill. So I was like, well, I mean, it's not totally impossible for them to get this access maybe. So staff and planning commission recommend conditional approval of rezoning this property to CS with specific use permit 122.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Hilton. Mr. Short, go ahead, open up on the left.
So this is contingent on getting access into the Quick Trip parking lot?
It is a recommendation. Our code says that we can require it, but then it gives exceptions that unless it can't happen.
We say it can't happen, like physically can't happen, or Quick Trip won't allow it?
Quick Trip wouldn't allow it. So when Salad and Go came in, we did everything we could. We had multiple meetings with the surrounding owners, talked to them, could not convince them to do a shared access. And so even though, on one hand, you can require it, but you can't force someone else to do something with their property. I can't force them. The code doesn't say that you can force them no matter what. Because if I own the property adjacent to you and I don't want you coming across my property, I don't have to let you, especially if it was both of them coming in at the same time, it'd probably be a little bit different, but one being existing, I can't
And
force them.
that's a substantial part of their employee parking. It's right there.
Can you say that again, Ken?
A substantial amount of Quick Trip's employees park on that south lot. You'd be taking up probably 3 parking spaces.
Yeah, so you think, you're imagining
Quick Trip fighting this.
the road that connects the two would probably be what, 2 car lengths wide?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, okay,
Probably three
Yeah.
parking spots.
okay.
It could be tricky. There's also the way the site plan is drawn. I haven't seen an updated one, but the way the site plan is drawn, it would be tricky with the escape lane and then going north. But it is a request, and it was recommended by Planning Commission.
Where is the escape lane?
They didn't show it in the site plan.
Okay. All right, anything else, gentlemen?
In looking at the picture of the location on 247. The design looks pretty good, I like that. I just was questioning, I guess, if the, talks about in there about the sound of the blowers. The way I would look at it is the blowers are going to be kind of on the south end. Those would be facing more towards whatever residents are closer to that from the south than they would from the north. Whereas if they changed that to the north, it would be going behind the Quick Trip, but not necessarily.
I think it is on the east side.
Is what?
Oh, the blowers, never mind. I hear what you're saying, when they're coming out.
Yeah,
Got it.
when you're coming out, the blowers be on the, what I would say is the north side of it, and that way the sound would be behind the Quick Trip, just looking at that offhand. It's, and I would have to refer to the chief or the chiefs on issues there, because I know with that being 5 lanes, and you get past that island and people are wanting to get into that middle lane to go into the Quick Trip, I can see where there would be some issues with cars wanting to go into the Quick Trip, but then somebody wanting to go in the car wash, and people are jockeying for position there. It could be a problem for sure. And it was mentioned by a resident that there's already 3 car washes along Elm there, one at the Come and Go at 111th, but it's non-functional. But you've got the one catty corner from there, and then you've got the one back north of there on the other side of the turnpike. We don't have any car washes out towards 75. And not saying that, you know, I'm encouraging the developer to go that direction. But the way this is looking, it's almost looking like we're kind of putting too much in there. And I know we may not be able to ever get anything done with this property. And this could be a good use for it. But then I guess kind of the last aspect of it is what do we see as a city of revenue from a car wash?
101st and
They're, unless they have a product for sale, which I asked them previously, I don't believe they do, then there's no sales tax revenue. It's a service.
Anything else, Mr. Murray? Okay, go to the council on my right. Mr. Emmons?
You said there's an expiration date on the SUP?
Yes, I think it's 2 years, should be in there.
That's negotiable, I'm sure, right? Or is it?
Brandon, do you see the sunset? Time limits. If for any reason the approved specific use permit ceases operation for a period of 2 years, then the approval of said SUP shall be considered void and will require another public hearing review by the Planning Commission and City Council. This shall also apply to any approved specific use permit that does not begin operation within 2 years of approval. This voiding of approval shall not apply if orderly progress toward completion of construction is taking place.
Is that boilerplate language in the time frame, or is that
2
something
years.
you guys negotiate?
Do you remember that state statute? It's definitely UDO,
Okay,
but, I mean, obviously, I copied and pasted.
okay.
I can't remember if the state statute has any time. Okay. We don't think that's state statute. We think that was something that we imposed.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Emmons?
Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Yeah, a number of items. First of all, I like the product, just being candid right up front. Like the product, don't like the location. And I realize that that's not necessarily our purview other than the standpoint of the zoning. As you'll recall, as we look to the property to the south, I had some challenges in opposition from a standpoint of highest and best use. The fact that we have acquired the property to the south and the land that was previously owned by the Turnpike Authority, designating that all as park area and public use, the last thing you want in a public park area is the sound of a car wash. The other thing, if I look at the language in the SUP language that you have referenced on page 240, the fact that car washes intensely dominate the area in which they're located and they have a general effect on the public. Typically, car washes, if they don't succeed, they become a bit of a scar on the area. I do think that the product that they're proposing, it appears that they have more of a, I would say, a detail type of operation, which I think would be lacking within the community. The other concern that, and Councilor Murray raised this, I try to shop every time I can in Jenks, and I buy my gas at the Quick Trip there, and I turn north out of the Quick Trip. And because of the median that's there and traffic coming from the south, turning north to go across the lanes, it's one of those things where you want to close your eyes and use the force. And the fact that we would have their ingress, their apron to the south of the Quick Trip, potentially you've got somebody turning right out of Quick Trip to go south, and somebody could be wanting to exit out of the car wash to go north. So then you've got vehicles potentially crossing lanes. And I would think the only way that I think that this would not become a major accident hazard would be if we closed it off to where there would be no left turn coming from the northbound lane into the car wash and no exits going north out of the car wash. So essentially prohibiting any vehicles coming in and out to go across the lane of traffic. So I see an ingress, egress issue with the location there. You know, the challenge is something else could go in there. We recognize that commercial use of the property is probably inevitable. I almost wish there was a way we could have actually acquired that lot when we acquired the Turnpike Authority land. That way it's all contiguous. But I do have challenges with the location. Noise, again, the impact that it'll have on the park, or what we've designated as a park and green space. I just don't think it's the highest and best use.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anyone else? Light your mic.
Could I?
Yeah, Mr. Shrout.
I would just like to remind the council that the property is, as it exists, is zoned IL. And IL allows for a business park, it allows for a gas station, it allows for a convenience store. And so we're talking about a car wash, which in many cases is a less intense use than some of the items that are already permitted. And so I almost kind of view this as, this is a down zoning, I don't know, dezoning, down zoning, whatever the term may be, but you know, we're reducing the intensity of the use, and I think that's why staff has been supportive of this, and I understand the concerns about, certainly about the noise coming from the dryer machines or the blowers, but I just kind of look at this list of permitted uses and think, well, gosh, I mean, there could be a much more intense use than a car wash at this location. And so if we're trying to be practical here and say, okay, it's zoned IL, somebody could come in and do something by right, and someone wants to do something that's technically, according to our UDO, a lower intensity, even though I know that we've had some issues with the car wash at 111th and Elm because it backs up to houses like 10 feet away. But in this case, it wouldn't. So I was just trying to point.
So anything in the gray boxes that have a P in red under IL would be allowed by right and would not come back to city council.
Okay. I gotta tell you, I agree with you to some extent, Mr. Shrout, but if the picture on page 2 is the actual Tulsa location, looks pretty intense to me. I also agree with Mr. Brown's egress issue concern. I think it's a much graver concern than we all realize. If you've pulled your car up there to where the proximate entrance would be, imagine trying to turn left. And we're only 1 month into our mall season with this new mall, so highest and best use. This is a interesting application, to say the least. If there's no more questions or comments from Mrs. Hilton, we can go ahead and bring the applicant forward. Let's go ahead and do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hilton. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you very much. Justin DeBruin, Walls Design Collective, 123 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. I appreciate your comments. I'd like to kind of take these one by one if I can. To begin with, it was mentioned that currently the property is zoned IL, that it's not a tax-generating zoning category for the most part. That's more employment-based. If you look at the comprehensive plan, and I believe we do have an exhibit, do you mind finding that exhibit for me? There it is. Do you mind me walking over there and pointing? Or
No,
kind
not at
of
all.
zooming in for me there? Okay, so I like this exhibit because where you see the red, he's got it, all right. Really, the developable area that we're looking at would be roughly half of the site, if not less. So you are providing a further buffer to Polecat Creek. The overall property size, the structure would be roughly 3,000 square feet. The parking requirement is about 8. As far as noise pollution, the vacuums are directly to the east, closer to the actual arterial, as opposed to the southwest, or even, for matter of fact, the north for Quick Trip. We have agreed with Marseille and staff that additional landscaping above and beyond what would be required is certainly something we would consider, especially along the east. But that would include, of course, fencing and screening against any residential or ag properties to the west or south. Specifically to the east, we're looking at, again, the addition of the landscaping and practically a landscape wall. What we would ask, if this is approved, it would make more sense not to abut right into the floodplain, which would be directly south of where that red portion stops. That would cause issues, again, when it comes to DEQ and the floodplain. By building those walls further and further south all the way to the property line, it would maybe make a bit less sense. So we'd like to keep it to the developable space. But you're talking about a car wash that would have much more minimal parking than many of the commercial type uses that you might see if it was rezoned to CS. And the CS with the SUP allows for, again, these above standard conditions that would apply to this property. They will meet the facade requirement, they will meet the landscaping requirement. The entire nature of the car wash and the requirements by ODEQ, especially with permit 75, require that all water is contained within the structure itself. So this will be stored, any of the runoff goes directly into an underground storage tank, which is pumped. ODEQ does require a monthly report on how much water is being retained and, again, what comes off of that particular site. If you kind of picture hypothetically going through the car wash, the blowers that finalize the product take the water off, you go to the vacuums directly to the east. So you are really mitigating any runoff that would possibly happen to this site through underground storage. For noise pollution, again, the vacuums are located directly to the east. The blowers are internal to the building, so to some degree that I would say that's mitigated. Outside of that, we have mentioned that the separation between the residential is pretty substantial, about 1,200 feet. Marseille had mentioned that there are mobile homes. Again, that's where we're screening, possibly landscaping. We're not opposed to, again, making this work. But overall, the comp plan, the zoning code allow for this particular use. They don't encourage the existing industrial use that's allowed on site right now. So with it being mitigated to half the property directly to the north, we feel like it's a fairly minimal use for this particular site. Regarding the mutual access, the shared access to the Quick Trip, Marseille's completely correct. If this were during a platting phase addressed with the property owner to the north, maybe something could have been worked out. That is something that we would love, honestly, to see is a shared access with the Quick Trip, but retroactively, it's really up to the property owner to the north as to whether they would allow that mutual access. If that is required upon us, we can't make the property owner to the north do that necessarily. Where we show the access, it does meet the separation requirement that would be required with the commercial to the north. Like any other commercial establishment, we're meeting that separation requirement. The median is south of where we propose the entrance. We would not be opposed to further discussion on access and how that works with the site, but there's a lot of give and take with this particular site, and I think we're trying our best to bring a good product. Again, it is a market-driven economy. You do have 3, give or take, car washes that are in the area, but we do have ownership representation here, and they can tell you that this is a flagship car wash establishment, and if it could potentially beat out another car wash in that area. But again, that's their right, if allowed by the council here today, if they are approved. So with that being said, I would be happy to answer whatever questions you have.
Thank you, Justin. Any chance they're willing to move this car wash down to the 55 and up community down south?
I don't believe so.
Okay, all right. It's good to see you again. Any questions for Justin while we have him here? Okay, do we want to hear from the actual potential car wash proprietor? Might as well. Thank you. Sure. We can invite them to come forward if they'd like to. Good evening, sir.
Hi, Mayor, Council. Brandon Murphy, 11677 South Hudson Court. That was an improvement. Last time I did this, I forgot my address. So
All right, I saw that.
It's good.
You got it down.
It was rich. Yes.
Your experience.
Yes, exactly. A little nervous.
We
but
are far less intimidating than that planning commission.
way less.
Yeah.
No, kidding. What can I answer for you?
I got a quick question for you. The flow looks like there's 3 lanes of cars leading up to the door, but the picture on page 3, is there only 1 car going into the tunnel at a time?
That's correct.
So these 3 lanes of cars are coming up, and what happens?
Yeah, so in some of the pictures online, it's great, but they were also our grand opening day where we gave everything away for free. So typically you're welcome to come by our wash at 101st and Memorial. There's a gate system that recognizes membership, and so what will happen is even if 3 or 4 people arrive at the same time, it's based on a license plate reader that will recognize that you're a member with us and then allow you to get into the queue based on the membership that you purchase. So it's really a quite quick experience. We average about 2.5 minutes for a finished product. One of the big investments that we make is we have a belt. It's a conveyor belt, unlike most of the, I know what you were saying about, some of these places that come in and they're not exactly, the best scenario. But just like any business, there's always going to be a premium, and then there's going to be a lower end version. We have what we feel like is the best in the world. We think that our clients enjoy the fact that no matter what vehicle they drive, they can load on about anywhere on a conveyor belt, and makes it quite easy and less intimidating. And in comparison to our neighbors who are in the same business, we don't by any means disparage anyone, but it is a unique product. The average build cost on what we're looking at around the corner is $1.5 million. We spent, including property, $6.5 million on our last project. It's quite substantial. We have clients that drive as far away from Owasso to come and see us, and additionally, we have clients who own vehicles that are north of $500,000 that trust their vehicles with us because of the level of equipment that we put in our product and the upgrade on soaps and polishing and waxing. It produces a much nicer product than what you would find in what you guys have probably been referring to. It is, as he said, it is a flagship. My nephew and I developed it here in Tulsa. We were featured in Car Wash Magazine as one of the most premier places in the United States to have your vehicle washed. And yeah, it's a great place. We employ a lot of young people, which is great. It's a great first job for a lot of people, and we hire locally, and we have what we like to think of as the Chick-fil-A of auto washes. Everyone's, you know, a good brand of young person that comes to work for us.
All right, thank you, Mr. Murphy. Any questions, comments from Mr. Murphy?
I'd be, again, curious to
Brown.
know their feeling, again, if it was restricted entrance, again, on the no left turn situation. Because I really do think that the traffic issue will be a challenge there.
But before we even ask, if let's assuming all cars have to turn right, they're going to go down, across the bridge, get to the island in front of the
Exactly.
ranch, and what, do a U-turn? Or a traffic circle. If we had a traffic circle, I could jump on board with that, but that's not what's going to happen. I would say either way. A couple months ago, we talked about traffic, and somebody used the expression in the game Frogger. I feel like no matter what, that's where we're heading, yeah. Mr. Murphy, I'm guessing your, the picture on page 2, the blue and gray, that's exactly what you plan on building?
Exactly,
That's-
yes.
Okay. And you suspect that you will be, it seems like you're pretty confident you will be the best car wash, and that's the Miracle Mile that we have where all the
We
car
believe
washes
so,
are?
yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of beautiful cars that drive down that road.
Okay. All right. Any last call, questions for Mr. Murphy? Okay, thank you, sir, appreciate it. All right, we'll close the floor. We will, we are still on item 14, which is a zoning request. We can go ahead and open the floor to the members of the public. If anyone would like to speak on behalf of item 14, you are welcome to do so. You okay? Yeah. At least the air conditioner got turned off, and it's not as cold as it was a minute ago. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Charlotte Montgomery, 10612 South Fir Avenue. When you first heard about the car wash going in there, it's probably about the same reaction I had and a lot of my neighbors. A car wash? There's like 2 down the road. And you're thinking about how they look. So I've had to get past that to look at what they could currently put there with the IL, and then with CS, what are their other options? Because I look at it this way. It's not, it's the land use is not in compliance with the zoning. It's going to be CS. Commercial's going to go in there. So what do you want to go in there? If they can't make this work, either the applicant is going to come back, or the owner is going to come back and ask for CS. Or if they ask for a car wash, in 2 years they don't build it, or in 5 years they go under or decide to sell it, then you still have CS. So it's going to be commercial. The question is, what do you want it to be? If you wanted to control what it needed to be, you should have bought the property. That's what you guys usually tell us when we come up and we're upset about residential developments, right? So that's gone, that train left. So what makes sense to go there? What I like about this is it is an SUP. You know right now what's going to go in there. If it's CS, they, by permitted right, they can put in things like a dispensary. They could put a honest to goodness, someone called me and they said, you know, we used to work with federal land and we had a piece that we needed to maximize some dollars on, and a drive-through Der Wiener Schnitzel was there, and it's the one that has the rotating hot dog on top. You just drive through. So they could put one of those in, and heaven forbid, another drive-through coffee shop. Perfect spot, right? And your thought's going to be the same thing about the car wash. 3 others within a mile, and now you have 3 within a quarter of a mile. So when I'm looking at what would go in there, at least I know. And I just can't get bogged down in thinking in 10 years if the property wants to become something else, what that might be. I have to stop myself short of that, and it's very hard to do. The thing that I think is important about understanding this is that it will always have an underlying CS. And that's the one thing none of us have control, but it's going to go CS no matter what. It did bother me that it's not revenue generating. No sales tax will be generated out of this. And as the planning director said in one of the other applications, what is one of the intentions of LC? It's to generate sales tax. So that bothers me, but I don't know that it bothers me enough to say no, but it certainly would make me feel a lot better about having it there if it did generate revenue. A lot of us in my area have had concerns about environmental, with it being located right there with Polecat. The OTA land is a wetlands conservation easement. And unfortunately, I couldn't get any information from Wallace Designs. But anyway, a couple of us went online. We did our research. We were looking at what would be required for a car wash at that location. And the bottom third, at least, of it is in a regulatory floodway, not just a floodplain. The rest of it is located in a floodplain. So what does that mean? Well, of course, there's going to be a lot more stringent requirements. And when we were able to look at the DEQ website for car washes, there are quite a few interesting things. Car washes can have their waste, water, and other things. You know, you have sand and other particles and other things that get into that get washed off of your car. And those systems can either be above ground or underground.
Your microphone, can you move that thing?
Can be either above ground or underground. And depending upon where you're located, especially in a floodplain or a floodway, you can discharge that wastewater that has been recycled, and it can be discharged directly into Polecat Creek, or it can be discharged into the storm drain. And so that does give me concern about that being discharged, because if it's recycled or quote-unquote purified, that doesn't mean it's drinkable kind of water, okay? So I have some real concerns about their waste system, because I know that there are enclosed systems out there that would require their wastewater and their sediments to be trucked off. So I do think that it's a valid concern about the waste product that comes off of that. But I could not get any information because the applicant at this time, it's not part of the process for them to have those answers. And I understand it, but it sure would have been nice to have had them. So what is the highest and best use for this? Is it a fast food restaurant, a bar, a dispensary, nail salon, dry cleaners? I like the fact that we know that it's going to be there. I do have some recommendations. I obviously found out through the Planning Commission, we can't require them. It makes sense to have an agreement with a third party like Quick Trip. But certainly that driveway would certainly make a big difference with cars. I know me. I would go to the Quick Trip, or I'd forget to go to the Quick Trip first. I go to the car wash, and then I go, oh, I got to fill up. Now I've got to try to make a left turn, basically a U-turn, to go into the Quick Trip. So definitely a concern for that particular area with all the merging lanes coming off and people wanting to make left-hand turns. So I think that not going to have an option but to approve this. I don't see where, is it the best option? Probably not, but I think it's a good option. And I do want to recommend a couple of recommendations that you attach for conditions. And one would be to require, because you don't know at this time what's going to happen with their wastewater and their sediments, require that their tankway system that they use will not discharge directly into Polecat Creek or the storm sewer. And again, that's their tank waste system for water and sediments. And then the other one would be to, I guess, require no left turn, but you're right, Mayor, they're going to go right down to 106 and try to make a U-turn. I don't know how to resolve that, but that's the only thing I can think for you to recommend to attach as a condition. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montgomery. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Hey.
Hey, all right.
Drew Dossie, 3827 South Trenton Avenue, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Brookside. Okay, hey, don't have a dog in this fight. I'm a commercial real estate agent. I thought a professional opinion might, help you guys. I actually spoke at the Planning Commission. I ask myself a lot of times, I do a lot of site selection, a lot of development work, a lot of things just like this. A lot of times I ask myself, well, what does this thing want to be, especially with pieces of land? And you look at this and you just go down the asset classes and you go, well, does this want to be a multifamily development? Not really. You don't have the size. You almost can't park it. It's not going to be an elderly living facility. Is it going to be an office? Well, I mean, nothing says inspiration like a third-story view of a 6-lane highway. I don't see that happening. Not to mention there's, 1 million square feet of vacant office space in the greater MSA. Retail is probably what this wants to be. You've got, like they said, it's a 1-ish acre site. About a third of it is net unusable. Economics are something I look at. So if it's going to be a single-family subdivision, you're looking at about, you're going to top out on your price point at probably $17.5 an acre. Single-family subdivisions are going to top out about $1 a foot. Light industrial use, which this would be great for, you could put Epic Roofing right there, and they could have trailers and trucks and trash stacked out there. Light industrial uses probably going to top out multifamily too at like $3-4 a foot. This thing's been on the market for quite some time, and for net usable, you're probably looking at, and I don't know the contract price, but I'd say they're flirting with $20 a foot. I just don't think that this can be a lot of things. And as for the sound, I mean, that's sitting at 610 feet elevation above sea level. The backyard of the furthest houses away from it that are about 1,000 feet or 60 or 70 feet above that. I don't see sound pollution being a thing. And then traffic, it's like, go to 71st and Memorial, go drive on Brookside. Turning left is just a decision that people are going to have to make. So again, this advice is worth what you're paying for it, but if I'm looking at this site and I do a lot of this, I kind of like it, so.
Drew, do you, what brokerage do you work for?
McGraw Commercial Properties.
Okay. Any idea what the listing price is on this property?
I think it was 800, thereabouts.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Public comment. Floor is open on item 14. All right, we'll go ahead and close the floor. We'll come back to council. We can get a conversation underway. Who wants to get us started? Anyone?
Is it possible for me to address comments?
Sure.
I'll be very
We'll open the floor back up to the applicant, since nobody's microphone on the council currently is working.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. I think those were very fair comments. I just have three points to close out on. First is that when it comes to the runoff on the side, it's biodegradable soaps. They do go into a pumping system, they do get pumped and brought off-site. That does not negate the fact that eventually, after the zoning, we would go before the engineer to discuss not only the drainage of the site beyond what would happen internal to the car wash, but also access. Speaking of access, no matter what commercial enterprise goes into that particular site, you're going to have the same issue. There's one point of access that's guaranteed on it, which we are preserving. And we're happy to speak to the neighbor being Quick Trip for potential mutual access, but again, it's not guaranteed. That will never change. The one point of access would be guaranteed without a taking. That's not a threat, that's just saying there's one point of access now, the one point of access is guaranteed. We're happy to work with the engineering staff to see what maybe the best solution would be. That's why we're looking at, again, landscaping and noise and so forth. We're trying to be team players with the city of Jenks. Lastly, what I would say is for the specific use permit, the beauty of that, there is state law that does back it up, that after the time period, this is so specific to a car wash, and that's what we're here to talk about today, that if that were to revert, you'd go back before the council before it is rezoned back to a CS-type commercial use. So what you're approving tonight is for one use as a car wash. And again, we've kind of outlined the rest of it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Justin. All right, council. Anyone want to get a discussion, start item 14? Mr. Brown, anybody? All right, I would say this. A couple people reached out to me and said, well, it could be a dispensary. And I told them, take a look at Main Street Meds and ask us if we could tolerate another high sales tax generating business that has very few cars going in and out. So that was the first rebuttal I would offer to the folks that are saying that. And I'm not a big fan of the medical marijuana industry, as I've said before, but apart from that, Main Street Meds would be a good example of what could be there. So using the threat of it could be this or could be that, I just wanted to have people keep that in mind. I'll say I completely agree. I think that the density here, the intensity of this use is really, really hard to swallow for this particular part. A lot of people said, well, this is all black and white, and it checks boxes. And if that's the case, then I don't think that we need a city council. If this checks all the boxes, then why do we have the option to approve things and not approve things? So I would say there is some odd component. And Mr. Brown, you were in the military, so you know we used to stand out in the field and we used to have everybody tell us it checks all the boxes, but we also had the option that we had a gut feeling that if something wasn't inherently safe, our commanders relied on us to look and make those decisions. So my comment back to the public that reached out to me is there is some component of us having the option to consider this safety aspect more than anything. And of course, it is somewhat risky to not approve of a project like this. We do know that there's options coming that could be less favorable, but that's certainly the hardest part of our job, is we have to consider what we have now versus the bird in hand versus the one that we don't know about in the future. So those are my comments. The floor will remain open. If you have any last minute comments, you may. If not, we need to move on item 14.
What is the possibility, Mr. Mayor, that, I hate tabling any discussions or any issues because it always delays the property owner and developer. I think the question about Quick Trip and shared access could have an impact on my view.
Could take 6 months, 1 month, nobody knows. So.
And I guess the reason I say that is, again, it keeps people moving off of, coming out of Quick Trip to go out onto Elm to come into the car wash. And it also gives them, it can help redirect the flow on the exit side so that we don't have two aprons roughly 80 feet apart trying to exit onto Elm.
Well, but you're looking at people coming in from Quick Trip that's going from the access from the roads that people are already coming in. So how are they going to flow into these 3 lanes of traffic that's on the lot itself?
Yeah, I realized that
Yeah.
it would change the design of the site.
Going in and out, because
Yeah.
you couldn't get
Yeah.
out going across those 3 lanes.
I would tell you, as someone who has a new 16-year-old driver, and I hope you guys can appreciate this, Matt, if my son were at the car wash, I would encourage him to go into the Quick Trip property to exit. I think you have a greater, longer sight lines. I think I went out the other day and kind of put my car right where this exit and entrance would be. And when you're looking to your right, if you want to turn left, you're naturally looking to your right to see all of us leaving our neighborhood. And you've got landscaping and trees there, and plus you have that little bit of a hill. It's a huge challenge, I think.
There's
for-
a blind
for-
spot.
For a
There's a
young
serious-
driver,
Yeah.
any driver really, to exit and turn left there, I think is immensely, there's a big risk there, and I think the only way that it could be safe is somebody would have to have the option to go to Quick Trip and then execute the left turn that they're probably already comfortable with, which is, to some people, they talk about not wanting to turn left out of Quick Trip. So I can see how, I guess the question we would have for you, Justin, to keep the conversation moving is, what evidence do you have that Quick Trip is engaging with you? Not suspect. Are they engaging with you or not?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Right now, but again, I think the point is that no matter what use were to go in there, it's going to be the same conversation every single time.
We
It's
understand,
gonna be
but we're
based
very
on
familiar with
access.
that process. that we
Right, but
get.
this,
Yeah.
at the moment, this is the conversation we're having with
Yeah.
this project.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that's what we really have to look at.
Understand.
And my biggest issue is the fact of the flow of the traffic itself. Already on Elm with everything else, we don't have a road at 106 that they could go turn right and go around. We don't have that. And until that happens, I just can't see putting in a car wash that's gonna generate no tax dollars whatsoever, and less than a half a mile away, there's the exact same thing over by Reese's. And less than a mile away, there's another car wash, although it is manual, don't get me wrong, but 3 within a 1.3 or 5 or 1.2 miles of 3 car washes, I just don't understand it. And
And-
at this point in time, I can't agree with it.
Could I?
Yeah, of course.
Say something at the risk of putting my foot in my mouth? Is this exact same setup is at 101st and Memorial with a quick trip and with this with a car wash. And there is access to Quick Trip, but then there's 2 access points onto 101st. And maybe it's safer if there was only 1 access point through the Quick Trip, but I almost think having 2 access points plus the entrance from the car wash to Quick Trip makes the whole thing even more convoluted. And so I would just say maybe instead of, if we're gonna
Can you back
try
up
to make a
that
thoughtful
site plan?
decision, maybe we could go
Stop
visit
it
that
there.
site or take a look at it before
Well,
voting no or
yeah,
yes.
We shop at Ulta and Home Goods like every week, so I think most of us are pretty familiar with it. Are you suggesting, Mr. Schrout, that at the south side, that there's another egress option that just dumps onto Peoria Elm where people going south? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I'm just saying, this thing exists at a super busy intersection.
Bless you.
And seems to be successful, but to me, having the double entry onto Elm plus an entrance into the Quick Trip parking lot almost makes this worse than having the 2 ingress, egress points onto Elm. So to me, it's kind of like, do you want to leave through Quick Trip or just leave like it is right now?
No, I thought you were saying is when you come out of the car wash bay, as soon as you start to turn left, there's another exit there. So anybody who lives in South Jenks can turn right there and go about their
Maybe.
business. Anybody who's going
Yeah.
to the mall can simply go to the current exit that's there and risk making that left-hand turn. So I think if somebody who lives in this city if I were to be a patron of this car wash, I would love the option to be able to exit right there and not have to battle with everybody. If you pull out of that exit and you're waiting on a 16-year-old to turn left, I think you could be there for quite a while they gather the confidence to stick their neck out. Not only are they yielding, as Donna said, to the QT folks, but they're yielding to anybody heading south on Peoria Elm. I gotta tell you, it just looks like a mess. This is a very, very nice car wash, and I'm sure it's probably be the best one in the city of Jenks. But it looks like a,
Mayor Ross.
my inner ear is telling me that this is
Marcy's got,
problematic.
Marcy has her hand up.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well. I was going to say, if you are inclined to consider it, you can require them to do a traffic impact analysis. And then we don't have to be the traffic experts in the room.
Well, we've been sitting here for many, many years, so there's all sorts of experts, but we live here and we drive this road every day. I don't need an engineer to tell me that the traffic's bad. I think we kind of all have a pretty good feel for it. I think the police or somebody in the city talked about, maybe it was somebody in this room, talked about the color of the map being orange or red, that this is a hot spot for traffic accidents. That was a concern that was brought up before Simon even opened, and I don't see how. All I'm saying is I can see there's other uses on this in CS that are probably less favorable, I would say, but there's also a lot of them that are less intense with the amount of cars.
That's my biggest concern as well, is safety. I'd love to see the car wash. I think it'd be a great product for the city, for the community, even though we may not be driving any revenue off of it, unless you guys wanted to add a coffee shop onto it. Just kidding. But the reality is, we don't know what possibly could go in there that could be lower intensity, but we know that this is going to drive traffic. That's the whole point of a car wash, is to bring as many cars through the establishment as possible in a short period of time. So it's going to increase traffic flow, and ingress, egress out onto Elm it's a known quantity. So I think the only way that I see this resolving is coming up with, do we like where the apron's at right now? No, because again, it's a challenge with the landscaping, with the median. The only way I see around it is, again, if there was another access point, Quick Trip would be the only solution I could see to that.
Yeah, and I would agree.
That's just my personal opinion.
Mr. Murray's comment, this is clearly a nice car wash. I think Gateway would be a wonderful location for it. Frankly, it'd be a lot safer, but that's just me.
I'll sit down.
Yeah.
My last thing I'll say is that, again, any use could come in for IL with the basic standards directly to the building permit, site planning process. So with the additional landscaping, buffering, and a willingness to talk to the city engineer and work it out, I really do hope you consider approving it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Well, any closing comments? Anyone else? All right. If you're for, or whether you're for, or not, we need somebody to go ahead and get us kicked off with a motion if there's no other comments on item 14. Yeah, but unless there's any other comment, I'll take a motion. I'll take a second, and due to the nature of the SUP, which we don't get very many, we can debate the motion in the second if you'd like. I know we don't do that often, but it's Robert's Rules of Order. But if somebody would like to make a motion for or against item 14, I think we're probably ready.
Clarification with Mrs. Hilton, because we're talking about a zoning and SUP, we're really not talking about platting restrictions or traffic restrictions, because there'd be a plat that would have to be. In other words, if I were to make a motion with a restriction, then no left turns to go north out of the apron, out of the existing apron, would that be an appropriate for this particular item? Because it's not a platting, it's not a platting.
I think that would be for the next go, right?
No, actually, you could do it for this, because that's the purpose of the specific use permit, to set parameters that you think would be protective. I probably would make that along with a traffic study, because the traffic impact analysis report provides solutions to improve the circumstance. So it doesn't just tell you, yep, it's bad and it's gonna get worse. Yep, everybody knows it's bad and it's gonna get worse. It says, it's challenging and you can do this, or this, or this, or all three, or these two options, and that will greatly improve the access and et cetera. So you could make that recommendation, but I personally would think that it would be best along with a traffic impact analysis if you wanted to approve it.
Then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we request a traffic impact analysis to determine if there is a possible solution to alleviate council concerns for safety.
So are you making a motion to
Yes.
approve item 14 contingent upon a traffic analysis? What happens when the traffic analysis comes back? You accept the
I'd like to make a
results?
motion that we require traffic impact analysis before final decision.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to approve item 14 with the applicant coming back at some point with a traffic analysis. Understand that at that point, whether the analysis gives you the results you're looking for or not, I think at that point would.
Teresa, we can't do that, can we?
Yeah.
Point of reference, this is exactly what we did with 7 Brew.
Well, I
Well-
think if no one agrees, then you simply don't have to second the motion, so. We could either table this, or we could vote on it and have them come back and present something else.
I mean, you're either approving it with a condition to conduct the traffic, or you're just asking them to come back with it for first consideration.
Yeah, I know, I think we'd have to establish some criteria. So they say, come back, here's your traffic analysis, and they're gonna expect you to approve it because they've accomplished what you.
If I could, again, try to put my foot in my mouth. In my opinion, if this were to pass, I don't know what the criteria is for, so we approve it subject to a study, and what are we looking for from the study? So I would think that we do the traffic impact analysis, or they do it, and then the decision is made.
So table this tonight pending traffic analysis.
That would be,
Either
if
that or
that's,
we
if that's
decline
the motion, then yeah. Or you could decline it, and they could come back and go through the traffic analysis, come back with a better argument.
Right, but
Against what the primary concern seems to be, is we're not concerned about the car wash.
It's a safety issue.
We're concerned about the cars and the traffic,
yeah.
if they want to come back.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you guys can do what you want.
I think the applicant might have something you want to.
It's pretty substantial money to go through a traffic impact
Yeah, I agree.
analysis. So
Yeah.
I can recommend, and it's just my words, is to say that it's a recommendation to approve, if that's the way we move, with a traffic impact analysis, which the engineer would then take over under his authority with a site plan and so forth. Otherwise, we would continue this for a month for further discussion. But I think that feels like the two options to me, because if we condition it upon us doing an impact analysis and come back spending thousands of dollars and it's denied, it's all for naught, as opposed to.
Yeah, I agree. We've had this debate before, and the traffic impact analysis doesn't necessarily, and even if we had a second ingress and egress, we just can't force people to turn one direction or another unless we put concrete there and make them turn. And I don't think we've proven to be good at changing driving behaviors without, if you look at 7 Brew, we had that debate. Well, what happens if they turn left? We'll put up a big piece of concrete that makes them turn right. But that's the only way we can modify those behaviors. So I would not, we do have a legitimate motion on the table, whether you like it or not. So I will keep the floor open. Does anyone want to second that motion? The motion on the table was that we approve item 14 with the applicant coming back with a completed traffic analysis. Does that agree that was the motion, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, actually, my motion was to bring a traffic analysis to table with until we get a traffic analysis to see what potential solutions could be provided for approval.
that seems to have gotten muddier. So
Yeah, sorry.
you were recommending approval contingent upon they come back with a
No, I'd
traffic,
like to see a traffic analysis before we give approval.
before we even vote on it?
Yeah, I really would.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'd like to simply request continuance.
Okay.
We might be able to get more information and talk it through before a decision is made.
No. Traffic analysis did, yeah, we've been down that road before.
I make a motion to deny.
We have a motion for denial of item 14. Is there a second? Second call. Is there a motion? Is there a second to the motion on item 14?
Second.
Yeah, we have a proper motion and a second to deny JZ 24 SUP 122. Is there any debate on the motion or the second?
But if it were, Mr. Mayor? Okay.
Yes, sir.
They've asked for continuance on this to come back with additional information. So if we deny it, then this is a moot point.
Well, no, I don't see any difference between, do you? They can still come back, yeah.
I mean, they can come back, they haven't, there's an application fee and a whole process they have to go through and notice planning commission.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll leave this to the council. To your question, Mr. Murray, we have a proper motion, a second. If you guys want to debate the motion, we haven't done this in many years. If we debate this motion and then the council decides for a continuance.
I think they would need to vote against denying.
Yeah.
And then make it.
And so we'd have to, we have a proper motion, second, we'd have to, and vote on that.
You
Okay.
can discuss it and then vote. but-
Yeah, okay. All right, so we have a proper motion, a second, to deny item 14. If you, at this point, agree that you do not want them to go through the heavy paperwork process again, but to accept a continuance, you can simply vote no on the denial. And then we could, that'll give them the opportunity to come back and take a second crack at this. So that's kind of where we're at. So we have a proper motion and a second to deny item 14. If you feel like you want to give them the opportunity to come back, then.
We just need to vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so the motion is denial of item 14. If you are inclined to deny item 14,
Say yes.
yeah, just simply vote with the no. Roll call, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Did you have a comment? Well, I'll hold it again. We've held long enough.
I think she was wanting to clarify, voting yes is to deny, voting no gives an opportunity for someone to move to continue.
Correct.
Yes, if you vote no, you are giving the applicant an opportunity to come back with for some further review.
Correct.
So no would be in favor for the applicant, and yes would be in denial of the applicant getting a second look at this.
Correct.
Okay. We crystal clear? Okay, Mr. Macy.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray? Yes. Brown?
No.
Short?
No.
Emmons?
No.
Mayor Box?
Yes. All right. Yeah. Where do you want to go, Mrs. Nowlin? Oh, that's right, we lack a seventh member. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
so you didn't get a quorum.
yeah,
A denial.
yeah, okay. All right. Due to Robert's Rules of Order, which we have never had happen here before, we do not have a quorum of our members, and so we have a denial. So item 14 is denied, correct? For the record? Okay. The vote failed.
They should vote again. Because it did not pass, so yes.
We'll go ahead and,
So.
we'll accept your advice.
The denial failed.
Yes.
So you're left with no action at this point. So if someone wants to make a different motion,
So I'd like to make a motion.
Well, if anyone on the prevailing, typically in the past, if anyone who voted on the prevailing side wishes to reconsider, they can bring back
Reconsider.
on motion.
True. That's
But we
correct.
have no,
reconsideration because there was no action taken.
and we have no prevailing side? Okay,
Because the motion failed.
yeah.
So I'd like to make a motion to allow the applicant to continue and bring back additional information for more consideration.
I suggest you set a date for, next meeting or next month.
I'd like to give him 30 days. That way, there's enough adequate time to get us, I'd like to see if we can come to a yes, but it's got to resolve the safety concerns and the things that have been voiced.
So the October 1st meeting?
Yes, you give me 30, at least 30
Is
days.
that reasonable? So we have a motion on the floor to give the applicant until the next regularly scheduled meeting and come back with more information related to traffic. Is there-
October 1st, not the next
October
meeting.
1st. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion?
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion and a second. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
No.
Murray?
No.
Brown?
Yes?
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
No.
Mayor Box?
No. Okay. Ordinance, item number 14 is denied. What was the down?
Motion failed.
Continue
Yeah.
denied,
Motion to continue was denied.
not approved.
Okay. There's no need for the emergency clause, I'm supposed? Okay.
There still has been no action on
Well, there's still no action on the item.
What was the vote count? How many noes and yeses? Okay.
the table.
4-2 to table it? Okay. All
So
right,
it wasn't tabled,
okay.
so still be voted.
So we'll see this again in October 1st?
No.
Okay, so
No.
where are we at?
I think there's a possibility you could see it again at the next meeting unless we determine the next meeting after.
There's not a yes or no.
So clarification,
The applicant wishes, yeah, we're gonna continue it to the next meeting.
so clarification, the first motion failed for lack of quorum, but the second motion was to grant the continuance, but that also failed. So we don't have any action,
We still have a live application.
so it's a live application.
Okay.
Shall we have a coin toss?
So what's the proceeding on item 15? Is it necessary or it's not necessary?
Still on 14.
Still on 14?
Still on 14.
I think we can move on and assume it will be on the next meeting unless decided it should be denied. You want to vote again on the continuance and then we.
That's the problem. I think we have too many double negatives. Yeah. Okay, I'll do this. I will make a motion to deny item 14. Period.
That's a reconsideration of the previous motion.
Is that legal?
What was the first motion we voted on, David?
Was to deny it.
We didn't have a quorum, so it wasn't.
Yeah, it was 3-3.
Did that vote already fail?
Yes.
Correct.
Do I have a,
Motion to approve or deny.
do we have a right to bring it back?
I think you can move it.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. I make a motion to deny item 14. Is there a second to deny item 14?
I'll second,
Okay,
but we already did that.
we have a proper motion and a second to deny item 14. If you agree to deny item 14,
You say yes.
simply answer with a yes. We'll try this one more time in case there was any confusion about the double negatives. you disagree with this project, motion is to deny it. Simply vote yes. If you agree to give the applicant additional time, simply vote the other way.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown?
No.
Short?
No.
Emmons?
Yes.
Mayor Bucks?
Yes. You have a 4-2 denial of item 14. If you have any questions or concerns, we will pause and let you guys figure that out.
Because we don't encounter this frequently, if ever, if there's issues, we can talk about it this week.
It's been denied twice, correct?
It's been denied once.
Denied once,
Yeah,
okay.
but we're happy to talk to you guys. We know it's kind of weird, so.
It should be continued to the next meeting.
That's fine. Well, like I said, we'll talk to you guys this week.
From a customer service perspective, we'll
Yeah, we will.
accommodate you any
We
way
will.
we can.
We're just trying to,
We've never been in the position for we've been here 7 years and we've never been down this road before. We've also never had a 3-3 vote in quite a long time without it. So, all right, Mrs. Hilton, Mrs. Nolan, what do we do for item 15? I'm not even gonna guess anymore. Okay, item 15 is pulled. All right, moving on to, other business. Mr. Shroud, anything on your city manager's report?
the consulting engineer for the South Elm project indicated to us that I believe we should have all of the construction bid documents this week and be ready to go to bid on South Elm next week. And so we should be able to award this project in October, and probably pending 60 days after the award, something like that, maybe more, have South Elm under construction. And that's from 111th to 121st, and they're still working on 121st to 131st, but should be done shortly thereafter. So that's exciting. Coal Creek Village, which is the 50 acres at 121st and Highway 75, is still moving forward. The developer is working on acquiring land, and we'll have something before you probably within the next 2 months. We have the Ascension Hospital grand opening. They took over Core Hospital. That'll be, I believe, September 26th. And then we have some Jenks Chamber events coming up that Sarah will send you invitations to. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Shrout? All right, very well. Any committee reports? Anyone from council, anything you want to share? Okay, then I'll keep mine brief. JEDA committee, first two names announced from Ward 6, Doug Wentz, and from Ward 2, Angela Nixon. We have Wards 3 and 5, I'll announce very soon at the next council meeting. We'll have all this wrapped up. Appreciate the applicants. It took quite a bit longer than I thought to wrangle where all these people live in the city, but we are making progress, and that will be wrapped up very soon. I have a note here from the gentleman that was here who decided to leave, so I assume, but I'll make this quick. Veterans Day, on Veterans Day, that night, there's the Jenks Veterans Advisory Council is working with a Jenks resident who was here earlier to show some appreciation to local veterans. There will be a dinner at Los Cabos. You may have seen we've been asking for sponsors. Appreciate a local Jenks resident in the insurance industry whose name we will reveal later, and Gateway Mortgage, I believe, for being some of our big sponsors to this point. But if you are out there listening and you would like to contribute to this effort, for every $100 that you donate, you will feed a veteran and their guest and provide them with a gift bag. So we have sponsorships at $100, $300, $600, and even $1,000. If you choose to donate, you can write a check made payable to the VFW, but I can provide you more information. If you're interested, please reach out to me via phone or email, and I'll be happy to get you that information. And we appreciate your support for local Jenks veterans. You know, I had a couple other things, but the last 5 minutes have kind of felt like I've had something to drink, so I don't really remember what was on my mind. But, so we will hold the, if it comes back to my memory, we will discuss them at the next meeting. Before we adjourn, does anyone need to take a break before we move on? Okay, all right, let's go ahead and say that it is 8:40, and we will say we are adjourned, and we will take a 5-minute recess if that's acceptable. to approve item 1. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Chairbox?
Yes. Item 2, we will pull. Mr. Stroud, anything else?
No, sir.
All right, the time is 8:46. We will adjourn Public Works. That might be the fastest Public Works meeting, huh? And we will move on to our special meeting of the Jenks Economic Development Authority. Roll call, please.
OJ?
Here.
Murray? Here. Brown?
Here.
Short?
Here.
Emmons?
Here.
Chairbox?
Here, item 1 is the consideration of appropriate action relating to our consent agenda. If anyone in the council has an issue with A, B, or C, please let me know. If not,
Make a motion that we accept number 1.
Second.
thank you both. We have a proper motion, a second. Let's vote, please.
OJ?
Yes.
Murray?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Short?
Yes.
Emmons?
Yes.
Chairbox?
Yes, pull item 2. Any other business? Last call.
We have a 2-hour presentation from the police chief, but he just left, so I
Okay.
think we're good.
Would we like to recall Chief Jackson? Last call, council. Anyone else? All right, very well. The time is 8:47 PM. Special meeting of the Jenks Economic Development Authority is adjourned.